Hello, welcome to the first, I guess I'll do it with Pat House, of 2024. Happy New Year, everybody. Hope everybody had a great holiday season, all that shit. Let's get right to it. Today, I have a very special guest, and I mean that in every way, shape, and form, because today's guest is the first guest I've ever had on this podcast. Guest number one. She absolutely deserves a real episode after this point. Today, I have my very good long-lost friend, JoAnn Schinderle.
Hello. I'm
Hello.
happy to be your first number two.
First repeat guest. And I owe you that, because I feel like I listened to our first episode again today, and it's not bad. It's short. It's like 17 minutes. But, I hope I've gotten better since then. I hope in 3 years of talking to friends, comedians, musicians, all sorts of creative people, I've got a little bit better at my interview skills. So I'm happy to have you back to give you a real full episode.
Oh, this sounds so sexual. I'm gonna really just really give it to you fully. I only lasted
give you the full
little bit. No, but I'm honored. I mean, also I'm honored. I don't know if I think maybe this is the first time I've been someone's first guest, but it's a special moment because that means that you trust me, and I love that, and I trust you back.
Absolutely, and I'll never forget. So we recorded that episode in Appleton, Wisconsin, in a hotel room.
Yeah.
I had never recorded the podcast in my life, and I remember as soon as it was done, when I got the audio to my awesome producer, Moose, he goes, "Why the hell did you record next to the air conditioner?" And I was like, I don't know how this shit works. I didn't even think of that. But it was so hot when we recorded, I for sure had the air conditioner cranked as high as it could go. So, you learn things along the way.
You learn things along the way, but look, we're not, I know you couldn't see us on there, but I didn't want anyone to hear our smelly armpits.
Yeah. That was the last time we worked together, and that was a really fun weekend, except for that Saturday Late Show. I remember Friday. No, this was in August of 21, I believe. Maybe 20 or 21.
I think it was. I'm trying to remember that too. Truly, those years all blend together.
Yeah, I think they do for all of us. Yeah.
Yeah. But I know, but it was right the time where it was like everyone was going stir crazy because the Midwest never really shut down for COVID.
That's why I flew there, though. Maybe I'm a bit of a dickhead for that, but I had the chance to do a full weekend and bring you, and I was like, yep, I'm going.
Yeah, and I did that.
Maybe it was 20 then, because I think some things, world shut down March 2020, and then maybe by August, 4 or 5 months later, some restrictions were eased.
Yeah.
But it could have been 21 for all I know, too.
It truly was that. Well, what's the date on the podcast?
Oh, yeah, I guess I could look at the date.
I don't know. Because there was a couple times. So I spent I was doing shows in Chicago when the world shut down. So I was actually doing shows in Eau Claire, Wisconsin on my way to Chicago. Because my album had just came out in 2019, Dark Jeans. And I was at Sketchfest in January of 2020, had my own show there for it, was very excited.
Yeah.
Went to Eau Claire, was going to start doing a little run. And then March 17th, the world shut down and my parents live in Madison. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm here now. So I went up there and then I lived with them from, March until August. Or it was July. And then I went back to LA because I was paying LA rent.
And not even there.
And not even there. Ooh, I don't want to I bet he's not listening to this, but what can I tell you? One of these rent, because comics, we do, you know what I mean? We're
100%.
We're vagabonds.
Also, it was 2020. Your episode was uploaded September 16th, 2020.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because I was getting stir crazy, but I was also so upset because I was paying rent, but I was it was a Craigslist situation that was supposed to be temporary. It was a friend's brother in LA, and he never shut down for work. He worked at a place that never had lockdown, so he didn't have rent restrictions because in Los Angeles, people just weren't paying rent during that time. But he still charged me and this other girl who rented rooms from him, and she was an actress, I was comic. I paid $850. She paid $780 or something. He charged us. I looked up the rent of the house, not worth that much. So like, because he was grandfathered in, so we were paying his rent during COVID time.
Oh, what a
I was
shit
pissed.
bag.
So I was like, I got to get back there, get my shit out, blah, blah, blah. And so I did. And then I think, yeah, you contacted me. I think you're like, are you still in the Midwest? I'm like, oh, sure, I will be. Yeah.
Did you ever confront him about that?
No, I mean,
Or just
yes
burn the
and
place
no.
down? Just go right to the arson?
It was one of those things where like we had tense conversations together, but like at the end of the day, it was just like, I got to get out of here. I got to move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I manifested and then I went back to the Midwest.
Yeah. And I remember that weekend because it was my first weekend, probably a lot of people's first weekend back on the road in COVID. And I remember the Friday show was fantastic. The Saturday early show was fantastic. And Saturday late sucked balls. I remember that clear as day because that was crushing, one. And then I was headlining and I bailed at 35 minutes. And I ran to the
Oh, I
manager.
remember that.
I ran
Yeah.
to the manager. She was so nice. I forget her name. She was so nice. And I was like, I am so sorry. I have never bailed before, but they weren't having fun. I could not get them. And she was like, oh my God, it's fine. Do not even worry about it. I felt so bad. But she was like, oh my God, don't even worry about it.
I forgot. See, I forgot about that even. But I do remember this now of you just like, you're like, this is, I couldn't even fake it with them.
Dude, I couldn't. And like, the other crowds were all fantastic, but this Saturday late show, it was like 12 or 14 people. It was a small crowd, but I remember they were just staring at me like, and I was getting like dead silence. I'm doing old shit in my back pocket, getting nothing. And I remember looking at my phone and I was at like 32 or 33 and I'm like, yeah, I'm doing my closer now. And I just went right into it.
I'm in charge now. I'm doing it.
And then we went to that bar on the main strip. And I remember I spent a lot of money playing Whitney Houston on touch tunes while we played skee ball.
Yes. That place was great. That's like a true Wisconsin bar. I wish I remember the name of it.
I know. I can see the building too. I know what corner it's on. But I remember that was like I had 72 hours of like being. I mean, I still wore a mask and abided by the rules and everything, but I still had like 72 hours of freedom because we were so much tighter here in Philadelphia. And I remember coming back to friends being like, I saw the real world again for 72 hours. I remember what it was like to have a beer at a bar and shake hands with somebody.
Dude, truly, COVID did not exist in Wisconsin then. And it was.
I remember being amazed at just the lack of masks and like just how different it was from Philly and like the suburbs here that I was stuck in.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy being there and like seeing all of like all my friends on Instagram, like, you know, in the internet that were in Los Angeles, they're like crying and everyone's so scared and blah blah blah. And like it was very scary. I'm not trying to downplay that, but then to like have my day to day in Wisconsin with my family just be fucking like the grocery store looks completely normal and whatever.
Yeah, that was quite the time. Anyway, long story short, that's where we worked together last. And I typically start each episode now by talking about where I met my first guest. That's kind of become my thing on the show. You and I met at the Portland Helium. I don't know. I definitely cannot put a year on that one.
Oh my gosh.
That I could not. Well, whatever year that club opened, within a year or two of that, probably.
I mean, I started in 2012, and I think I started working there pretty early on in like 2014.
Okay, so then I had to have met you at around 13 or 14 then.
Yeah.
Wow, 10 years ago. Holy shit. Already.
We look great.
I remember, dude, remember when you and I, Helium would do this thing called Writer's Block where open mic comics could have like a writing session with some of the local more established comics. And I remember being asked to do the Portland one because I was going to be there all week. And you and I did Writer's Block and not one person showed up. And we just drank wine at the bar the entire night. And that was way more fun than having a workshop. Like, no question.
Yes.
Way more fun. We were just talking.
I saw those pictures.
Oh, you got to resend that to me.
I will.
If you do.
Yeah, well, and like the writer's block thing was it was like a cool concept.
It was such a cool concept. And I did a handful of really fun ones in Philly because one, you do get to help newer comics, which is awesome. And two, it's cool when the club sees you as somebody who's like established, and it kind of makes you feel good. Like you're like, yeah. So it was a nice two-way street. But yeah, I had a couple good ones in Philly. But our Portland one, I can't even call it a bust, even though nobody showed up because we had a blast.
Yeah, it wasn't a bust. Yeah, they invite us there. We got a drink for free for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever.
Yeah. And then it extended way longer past that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember though, so I think right on the time I had just done a writer's block, like the month before, or something like that, and it was about producing shows, and a lot of people came to that. And then I think once like the trend in Portland was like once one popped off, then if you came back a second time, no one really had any more questions because it was a small scene. But I do remember
such a killer scene.
Yes,
you guys really had a lot of heavy hitters come out of there.
A lot of heavy hitters and a lot of all of the best shows were ran by women, which I'm just very proud of all the time. But there was like a golden years of Portland, I think, between like 14 and 18, and all the shows were female led, which was tight.
I remember being out there for All Jane and hanging out before and after my shows. It was a lot of fun. I definitely saw you. I think I did your afternoon show with Jake.
Yeah, the brunch one.
Brunch one, yeah.
Jake's in New York now.
I saw him in Buffalo earlier this year.
Oh, tight.
Yeah, and I haven't seen Ian Carmel in 10 years. I'm seeing him tomorrow.
Yes, yeah, he's in town. I saw him last night. He has a show tonight, and then tomorrow. Yeah, dude, so many crushers. Everyone's coming out of that scene because I've heard that there's this phrase that they're like, if you can do comedy in Portland, you can do comedy anywhere. If you can get a Portland audience on your side, then you've got.
I will say, I think it took me a couple years to get ready to get adjusted to Portland. My first feature week there, I ate it 5 of the 6 shows. I remember that. And then each time I came back, now granted, there was always a shitty set lurking around the corner in a full week, but
sure.
It definitely took me 2 or 3 times of coming back to be like, okay, I think I get this city now.
Yeah,
it's not a bad city. No. By any means. It's a great comedy town, but coming from like Philly and New York and Boston, I think, and I'm not even like aggressive or mean or anything, but I was like, no. I think I'm a little too much for them somehow, and I couldn't figure out what it was.
It has nothing to. It's just they're very judgy. They're a very judgy crowd, which I personally adore. But but they're like, I remember there's a Chicago comic that came and did my show, and he's so funny and he's so clean. He doesn't swear because he does like the Midwest, like, what are you freaking kidding me? Like, oh gosh, like he doesn't swear kind of thing. And he has a joke about saffron. And he was doing it and it crushes. It's like a joke about him like wanting to steal stuff from Trader Joe's because it's too expensive or something like that, right? And Portland gave him fucking nothing, like nothing on my show, which I always thought that the show I ran was a little bit more edgy than
Control Yourself.
Yeah, Control Yourself.
I did it several times, a handful of times. So it was on Sundays.
And you crushed.
I used to hang around it an extra day if I was able to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. But point of the story that they gave him nothing. And then I remember I got up on stage as a host and I was like, excuse me, y'all, fuck you. This dude is, and I listed all of his credits. I was like, he's so fucking funny. What's your problem? And some girl in the audience, she just goes, his voice was too low. It sounded mean.
That sounds like a statement that would come out of Portland.
Yeah, and I'll never forget it. His voice was too deep. I didn't like it.
But okay. I remember one time, and I was doing this in jest. If you call them on it, they immediately back down. They're like, I know, we're being dumb. Like, yes. If you call them on it, they totally come around. One time I was just loosened in the moment, and I was talking about strip clubs and how you guys have like I was at a strip club with dog treats on the ground. I had never been, but I was just riffing in the moment. I'm like, you guys are fucking weird, and you know it. And the rest of my set was so much better. I'm like, yeah, I just needed to call you guys on it. Just fucking buckle up from the start. Jesus.
Right. Yeah, you just get in there just like, yeah, we understand. Which I haven't really done too much comedy on the East Coast, but I feel like no one wants to be called out on the East Coast.
I feel the East Coast is very much more like in your face, not like aggressive or abrasive, but it's like a lot of
Mhm.
comedy's like quick here, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
What stand up have you done here since you moved?
I mean, I got here in October and my job's pretty demanding. So I've done two like local bar shows and then I just had my weekend with Patton back home in Wisconsin.
Oh,
So
nice.
that's
That's
it.
right. That's right. How was your New Year's
Yep.
Eve weekend?
I I jumped into the hosting ring for Sean. So Sean Patton has been performing at the club for like a decade or more,
Mm-hmm.
and so he knows I'm from Wisconsin. So just he just is like, "Hey, are you going to be in town?" It's always a holiday show. It's Thanksgiving. It's Christmas. It's New Year's. It's something that he's there for. And then he's just like, "Are you in town?" He's like, I already got a feature, but do you want to host?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, dude!"
Absolutely.
Um, what I love hosting, like it's an unsung hero job, but
Oh,
it's
totally.
great. Yeah.
Totally. Hosting is so important, and you just get beat up the most. I mean, you're low man
Yeah.
on the totem pole, but you're in charge.
You're in charge. You're in charge. And like, and
And it
again,
makes you good.
yeah, with the trust thing, I'm like, great, thank you. Like, having a bad host can fuck up the whole night because then
Oh, God, yeah.
the feature has to crawl their way out of it. If the intro's bad, then the headliner's got to crawl their way out of it. Like, it matters. So there's that unwritten thought or rule of like, oh, I'm just hosting, and I was like, no, dude, that's when you have an incredible host, feature, and headliner, it's an
It
experience for the
is.
audience.
And, I was taught when I was, it's your job to get the show off the ground. Going first
Mhm.
can really suck, especially if they're tight and you have to warm them up and
So
you
you have
have
no
to
idea.
alter your set
Mhm.
list. You have an idea in mind, but these jokes aren't hitting. So you go back
Yeah,
and do older stuff. Like it can totally throw you
yeah,
off, but it's like the most important role on the show essentially because you dictate how the whole show goes.
yeah.
And people
Oh
don't
yeah,
realize that. And then people don't even realize the host is a comic. I can't even count the amount of times I've heard, "Oh, are you hosting or are you doing comedy?" I'm like, "Well, I'm doing fucking both."
yeah. Dude, both. Dude, I thought about this for real because it was New Year's Eve, and so I wanted to wear like a nicer outfit, and I was like, oh, like these black pants and like this maybe mesh black top or like whatever, and I was like, oh fuck, I can't wear all black because. One time, a guy at Helium in Portland thought that he came up to me after the show. He's like, "You're so funny for a waitress. It's so cool how they just let waitresses get up there and
Oh
host the
my
show."
god.
And I was like, "Sir, did you see me with the fucking drink, handing drinks out to people?" Like, no, I'm also a comic.
That's
Like,
so
but
funny.
but I looked and I was like, and I remember I was telling Nick Harris in the green room, the manager, and he was like, "Well, you are dressed like you're a wait. Like I was dressed in all black. I looked like the wait staff." And I was like, "Okay, fair.
Lesson learned.
Lesson learned. Never wear all black."
It's funny, even when you are on the show as a comic, sometimes people think you work at the club because just last year at the Virginia Beach Funny Bone, I was performing and I came off stage and a guy comes up to me. He went out of his way. He got up from his table to be like, "Hey man, hey man, hey man." He goes, "Hey, you were really funny. Do you know where I can get a spoon?" I was like, I'm sorry, man. I just came off stage, but I'm sure a man or woman has been to your table numerous times tonight. Maybe you should ask them when they come back.
Hey, real quick though, do you have a sugar packet for
Yeah,
my coffee?
but I mean,
What?
part of me, and this is how I deal with stand up too. Most of the shit in my act is either I'm mad or I'm annoyed. And I was like, fuck that guy. Who the fuck does he think he is? Asked me for a spoon. And then 5 seconds later, I was like, fuck, that is so funny. Like,
That's the funniest
I
thing.
had to be mad for 3 seconds, and then I came down and I was like, "Oh, that's actually really funny." And then I did that on stage a couple times. So that guy gave me a bit, but I just needed to be mad for a couple seconds after that happened.
Oh, I love being mad. I love being spiteful. I love being mad.
Oh yeah, well,
Rage fuels me.
that's where the best material comes from. No one wants to hear a comic on stage talk about how things are going well.
No, unless you're in Los Angeles, then they do. They want to hear that.
That's all lies, right?
I felt no, Los Angeles comedy felt like a lot of people on the cusp of being an indie darling who just talked about their day. Like it was like a lot of people that are like about to be in an A24 film and just
Huh?
on stage showing off. Like um it was more like here's my diary unfolding opposed to like here's jokes.
Huh? Interesting. I haven't done much stand up in LA. Like I have, but not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's been years and years and years before the pandemic, but never really hung around enough to like gauge what the scene as a whole would be like, or which
Yeah,
is
and
kind of
it's
a
kind
weird,
of
hard thing to even gauge, like New York, because you have open micers and then you have celebrities and everybody in the middle, and sometimes
mhm.
they're all at the same show or mic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then I mean, and that's the thing is that I think Los Angeles is a lot more uh like siloed off. You know, you have the Comedy Store, it's its own thing. The Improv is a different style than the Comedy Store
Mm-hmm.
even, and then you just have like indie shows. You don't really have much else going on, and like every show, depending on what part of town you're in, is a different vibe. So
Yeah, very spread out.
it's very spread out. And yeah, I'm the exact opposite of you. I truly don't know much about, excuse me, about New York comedy, but I'm excited to dive in. I'm excited to have my own show.
That's
Once this
oh
venue gets off the ground. So I'm the venue manager of UCB
yeah,
Comedy.
we were gonna get there. So yeah, just
Okay, sorry.
no, dude. This is the most free form, free flowing conversation. So yeah, so tell us how LA took you there.
So
Yeah.
so in Los Angeles, I was working in production for like TV production. I got into like audience coordination because I thought that it was going to be audience warm up. And I was like, oh, I want to be, people audience warm-ups are normally comics and they get paid so much fucking money to warm up the crowd for like a live TV
Yep.
taping.
Do you know Gary
And so
Cannon?
I do know Gary Cannon.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
How do you know Gary Cannon?
I've known him forever. Because we used to tour with Steve Byrne a lot.
Okay.
But then most of the times I've been to LA, we would hang out and I would go to a TV show with him.
Yes.
And
So
I would watch him do audience warm up, and just being like a comedy club comic and just like a guy from Philly watching TV warm up was like fucking mind blowing.
right. And wow, and I do know Gary, and I should probably text him after saying this, but I'd watch him and I'm just like, give me that job. I can do that job because it's hosting, and I
It
know I'm
is.
a good host. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a
So
great dude.
he is great, and he's been doing it for years. But what I found out is that there's like he's one of literally 4 people that do it, and that's just like the vein that they found, and it's really cutthroat, and it's really like ownershipy, and there's no women.
territorial.
It's very territorial. It's no
I didn't
women.
realize that.
Yeah, me neither. And so I was trying to get in that game, but it just I was literally told time and time again by producers, just like, sorry, we got a guy. We're not changing. We got a guy. They're like they're like grandfathered into these productions. It's crazy.
Wow,
Yeah, it's nuts.
like a
So
subculture of comedy,
yeah,
which there are many. But
4
that seems even
people.
4 people total, or 4 people just in LA.
4 people. I mean, 4 people for sure
It's
in
got to
Los
be 4 in
Angeles.
just LA because New York has its own separate beast going.
Yeah. I know that they do. I believe Gary's probably traveled with some of the shows because he does like Masked Singer and stuff like that. Like he does like
Yeah, I saw him
big.
do. I saw him at Ken Jong,
Yep,
Doctor Ken, and
yep.
then
The
I
Masked
forget
Singer
the
one.
other one, but
Yeah, yeah. Um, but anyway, so I wanted to do that, and then I kept hearing no's, and I was like, okay, well, that what's that saying? How many times do you the point of insanity or whatever?
mm-hmm.
I don't forget what that phrase is, but I was like, I'm going to pivot. And so then my boyfriend actually saw a job opening at UCB for like a house manager. So I applied for there, got the job. And then within like 3 or 4 months, got hired, promoted to be their venue manager.
At the
And so I've
UCB
been,
Hollywood,
yeah, yep. It's called UCB Franklin. So
Franklin. Yep,
that's like their flagship one.
I had a
Um,
bomb there 15 years ago. I'll never forget. Like,
what show?
um, it was on a Tuesday. I remember that.
I'll put your hands together with Cameron Esposito.
No, it was okay. So, long story short, this is kind of worth sharing because this bomb still haunts me to this day.
I mean, your eyes lit up, yeah.
And it was probably more than 15 years ago. So Paul F. Tompkins is from Philly. I was opening for him in Philly, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to go on vacation in LA." He's like, "Oh, I'll get you a spot at UCB." Comedy Death Ray, was that a show at the
Yes.
UCB?
Mm-hmm.
It may have been that one. Okay. Anyway, long story short, Paul F. Tompkins gets me like a 7 to 8 minute spot, and I had to follow Maria Bamford, and that's her turf.
Oh, I remember you telling me this.
Dude, that's her turf. She absolutely crushed. And again,
Oh, yeah.
maybe kind of similar to like a Portland situation. Like, I'm from Philly. I may have been a little rough around the edges, but I, like, when I tell you I bombed so bad, I saw the face of God. Like, not only, like, I would have bombed on my own, but just following her on her turf just made it that much more.
I don't know anyone
That
who can
stuck
really
with
follow her.
me
Like,
forever.
oh, for sure. But that's not like that. Don't take that personal. That's like a
Oh, no,
hard,
no,
like,
no. I totally see what it is now. I followed Todd Glass.
that's
I
honestly,
followed.
that's like a producer. The producer fucked up. The producer didn't do you any favors.
Well, yeah, that one. And then my cousin and his friend were in the crowd, and I made them almost do like a "we just murdered somebody" pact. Like, we're never going to speak of that. I was so embarrassed.
Here's your fucking shovel. We're digging and you're
Oh,
burning it.
man. Like, obviously I'm well over it now, but like, that was
Clearly.
so important for me to like do a set in my first set in Hollywood, and Paul
Mm-hmm.
got me the spot. I didn't want to be embarrassing, and man, did every aspect just lead to being mortified.
And it's so funny because she's the nicest.
Oh,
So like
she's
I'm
so
sure,
nice.
I know, like, and I know that like following her act has nothing to do with like offstage stuff, but I envision like if you would have just said something to her, she would have made you. She could have turned your night around. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I
Like,
was only 2 or 3 years in. Like, I didn't even know any better.
yeah.
I probably thought I was going to like ride her energy and meet the crowd where they left off, but nope. Pat House had to start over
Oh
from
yeah.
square
I mean,
one when she said goodnight. Yeah.
there's just like that's always the goal. I'm trying to think of. I've definitely had situations like that where you're just like, I'm gonna ride it. I'm gonna ride that wave. They're gonna love it, and that nervousness when you're like, you know, they're about to close, and you're trying to think of like, okay, what kind of callbacks can I do from their set, or can I jump in on this wave, or what, you know. The pressure is just so much building, and then you
You're
jump on there, and then you're like, oh, you don't want to, you didn't want anything else. You guys wanted to be done after that.
Yeah, you're getting in your own head too, because now you're overthinking stuff. Oh, I could call this back. I
Mhm.
could call that back. Oh, she mentioned this. I
Yeah,
can segue that into that. And next
yeah,
thing you know, you're like fucking up your own set
yeah.
because you're
Have,
focusing on somebody else's.
yeah. Have you ever done that where like someone will say something really funny and then I'll be next. They'll say something really funny and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna comment on that or I got a tag for them or something like that. But then they go an extra like 3 or 4 minutes and then you're like, nah, it would be weird if I bring it up now. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna. It's
yeah.
the conversations in your head right before you get on are crazy.
Well, true, but I think I did something very similar to that this weekend. The host was talking about something early on in his set, and then 15 minutes later, I'm on stage. I was like, hey, so and so was just talking about this. So, it's a cheap segue, but it was able for me to get to my joke off the bat, which is what I wanted to
Yeah.
do, like a quick get him off the ground.
Yeah. I guess I think of like in transitions, especially with hosting, we're talking about hosting again, but um in hosting, if I've always liked to do a little something in between of like not ever at a club weekend, but like on a smaller show or something,
Oh,
just to like transition out
yeah,
of
and to have fun,
yeah,
like,
give
in
a
between your
jab.
friends, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, in a club, it's so awful to do that sometimes because I have, like, all the years I was hosting, the middle act crushes. I go out and the headliner's like, hey, do her 2 or 3 minutes. And I'm like, why? Like, I want to keep the momentum going. I want to keep the show
Yeah.
going because I've had so many times where I was hosting, headliner asked me to do a minute or two, and then I just fucking bring the show down.
Because they needed it?
Or they needed like maybe like a minute or two just to get themselves ready or just
Yeah.
go pee real quick. I mean,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
I feel like that doesn't really happen anymore. I don't think I've ever seen a
Oh.
headliner say to the host, do a minute or two, but I feel like when I first started hosting forever ago, that was very common.
Somebody was telling me this just past weekend we were talking about this. I don't remember the names or but there's like some lore story where a headliner had actually thought that the feature was better than them, and so they asked the host to come back and do 5 minutes in between the introduction because they wanted the energy to they wanted to the headliner wanted the audience to forget how good of a time they just had
Oh,
with
wow.
the middle or the with the feature that they wanted the host to come back up and like bring the room down.
I'm not going to name any names here, not that anybody would know who I'm mentioning here, but I feel like when I first started in Philly, when I was brand new, just doing open mics and hosting bar shows, I remember local comics telling me, don't ever open for so-and-so or so-and-so. They only bring shitty people so they look better. And I'm like, people do
Yeah.
that?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's
That
always I
like
think
blew
about
my
that.
mind. And then I'm like, well, shit. Well, if so-and-so asks me, that means I'm not funny.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah,
I
then you're
wasn't
just
even asked by said person, but now it's already in my head in case they do one day.
right. Now you're just like walking on eggshells around somebody. But
Or a day
it's
they
very
may never
common
come.
though. If, yeah. Well, fuck them though too. They should. But it's very common amongst female comics because um if you don't want I mean there's this whole thing about like if a lady comic gets big and famous, other lady comics look to see who they're bringing to open for them because it's like, oh, you want to bring up your own kind of thing. But a lot of the times people that are like female headliner comics will not bring other females with because they're worried that the jokes are too similar, that females only talk about the same type of shit. So I won't name names, but I've hosted somebody's special, their taping, and in the green room was told, hey, don't do any um, abortion jokes, don't do any Catholic religion jokes, and don't do any um, dating, specifically like giving head jokes. And I'm like, um, because that was what her set jokes are going to be about. And so I was like, great. I've never in my life, and I was like, well, this was like 2019. Like, I was well into comedy. I've worked with lots of people. I've never been given notes on what I can't do. But then, it's their show. I get it. They're taping. But also, like, I'm on in 10 fucking minutes and I have to, you know what I mean? Like, you could have told me this yesterday.
Yeah, I was going to say, I understand the taping's a one thing, and if you're filming something, whatever they says, go.
Sure,
Go says.
absolutely.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you should have had more than 10 minutes notice on that. And also,
Yeah.
then, like, the said headliner should bring their own opener then if there's all these restrictions. Because I remember, I won't say this, this is going to be called the secret episode because I remember
We're being shitty.
I got on a plane and flew to St. Louis, Missouri to feature for somebody and got demoted to hosting because I wasn't clean enough. And I was like,
Oh.
like, if you want a squeaky clean opener, and he didn't want
Mhm.
squeaky clean, but like PG, then
Yeah.
bring somebody you know or trust. Like, I got on a plane to be here. I
Yeah.
would have said no to this week. As simple
Right.
as
It's
that.
not, yeah, I lost money now. Exactly. Like what? Yeah, that's a bummer. I the most devastating experience of like feeling led on was in Portland. Um, David Spade was David Spade was there for a weekend, and I, growing up, have had the biggest crush on David Spade. Like he was my like I'd rip magazine like his picture out of a magazine and put it in a scrapbook. I fucking love David Spade, and I remember we were just, because how Helium works is when you're there for the open mic on the weekly open mic, whatever, the host announces who's going to be there in the next coming weeks or whatever. So I remember I was in the green room like waiting to go on for the open mic, and the host says it's David Spade, and I just started crying. I was like, oh my God, wait, because to me, I was like, I've hit the point enough where I work at a club that now David Spade is going to be, and I
Yeah.
potentially could work with him. Like I've made it. So I immediately
It's
asked.
exciting.
It's exciting. I immediately asked the bookers if I could have that weekend. They were so like, of course you're in, like, be cool, but of course. And I was like, no, this is, and then the day of the show, I get an email from the manager, from the booker, saying David's bringing his own people and doesn't want it's a two-man thing, which has happened to me before. Happened to me with Bob Saget, and Bob Saget was so nice about it. He like invited me to like hang out for the day because he was like, I'm so sorry, like the nicest.
He was.
Yeah, he truly was.
Philly
But
guy.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
We went to the same college.
Oh,
Dif-
RP to real one.
Different years, but yeah.
Sure. So I accept that. I was like, okay, that's a bummer, but I get it. I was like, can I still come see the shows? And they're like, they're obviously sold out. And they're like, yeah, come on down. I go down to the bar, to the club, and I'm hanging out. And all of a sudden, another comic walks in that I know, and I was like, hi, what are you doing here? You here to see the shows? They go, no, I'm hosting. And I was like, what? And then I was like, I thought they weren't bringing. No, it was hosting. And I was so fucking mad. And then the trying to play cool manager doesn't have an excuse for it, whatever. I watched the show. The host bombed. The host bombed so hard that the very next day, David Spade asked for a different host. And I didn't get asked again. And I was like, whoa. So the next day I show up because I want to see the shows again. And I show up and now a new person walks in and I'm like, hey, are you here to see the show? They're like, no, so-and-so, apparently David didn't want them to host. They bombed. And I'm like, my material, it would be a great show. And like, you already said yes. And then come to find out that a person in the comedy community told the booker that I was trying to fuck David Spade.
Shut up.
Which is not at all true. Not crossed my mind. Jokingly in jest, probably was said amongst friends, but like not, you know what I mean?
I would never hear you say that and take it out of any other context other than joking. And I don't know who would.
Right. So that's the one biggest where I'm like, I want to get to the bottom of it. I have a theory of who said what when, but I was like, dude, that sucks. But that's like my one thing where I was like, you fucking ruined it to have two different hosts pop through and be just sitting there like an idiot. But then now I looking back, people are just like, just go to the Comedy Store. David Spade is there all the time. And I was like, no, but this was just
that's different. That was your home turf and your home club.
Yes. And it was great shows. And I was just like, it was like a professional, to have a professional handshake with somebody that I've looked up to was, you know what I mean? Like, fuck you. You guys took that from me.
Oh, absolutely. Did you get the chance to meet him at all at Helium or no?
No. Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's comedy is totally full of so many stories along those lines. Not necessarily tied to what you said specifically, but just let down and more let down.
Right. And then you just, you grow up. I feel older. Do you feel older about the letdowns? I'm more like, I don't get, I'm like, meh.
Yeah, overall with a lot of stuff too. The letdowns, yeah, but also like what I love now about the point where I'm at in my career, like if let's say I'm headlining and just doing a longer set, 45, 50 minutes, and it doesn't go well, could care fucking less. Mm-hmm. Like bombing for longer periods of time does not faze me in the least. I mean, it sucks when you're on stage and you're in it, but years ago, I would have been crushed and embarrassed by a longer set that wasn't going well. Now, dude, I just put my head down, say my jokes, good night, and I'm going to check my email and my boxers later regardless. Good set or bad set. You know what it like?
Yeah, there's true. Longer
sets. Not just getting older in general, too, just shaking shit off easier.
Yeah, shaking shit off, and there's more of a control. I feel like I'm longer sets are more fun to do, and they're not, and you're just understanding that like you don't have to crush for 45 minutes straight. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. So, there was a couple like working at Madison this weekend. I think I was disappointed. It was like all the shows were sold out. The Friday night. 7:00. So I split. I didn't work Thursday night. Somebody else hosted Thursday night, but I jumped on, or someone else worked Thursday and Friday, and I jumped on Saturday, Sunday, because it's like still 5 shows. But I had friends coming that haven't seen me before, and the 7:00 one, and I haven't worked at that club in like a couple years, and I didn't want to do like old stuff personally. I wanted to do newer stuff, and it went fine, but it was like clunky. It was sea legs for sure.
Yep.
And that's the only like where I'm like, I less care about the masses. I more care that like these 4 people that I know in the audience saw me have sea legs,
It's so funny when you get in your head like that too. Like if you have friends or family in the crowd and there's 300 people in the room, 296 of them don't know who you are, but the
Right.
four that do, you're like, oh my god, they've all heard me do this bit, that bit, and oh no, I
Yeah.
know that is, and you're like, you can't cater the whole show to
Yeah.
those four people, but
Right.
that's something I always have in my
Yeah.
head.
Well, and then the New Year's Eve show. So there was a 5:30, an 8, and the 10:30 for the New Year's Eve. So like everyone just inherently knew that the 5:30 was going to suck, right? But that was the only one my sister and her husband and my cousins came to because they were too late to buy tickets for the other ones. So they're like, I guess we're going to the 5:30, and I was like, oh, great. But also in Wisconsin, there was a huge Packer game immediately after the 5:30 show. And so the whole audience was just old, like gray haired people dressed in Packer outfits that were just they it was the worst show of the weekend. And I was like, great. And then that's the one that my sisters saw too.
Of course. Had
Right.
you seen you before?
Yes, my sisters have seen me a couple of times.
Oh, cool.
But that's fine. I don't think my cousin had seen me before, but uh it just was hosting it was just that trying to choo-choo a train, and you want to say fuck you to everybody, but you have a smile on your head, and
Oh,
yeah.
I have a cousin. We're the same age. Well, he's a year older, but I feel like he saw me do open mics. He's seen me host. He's seen me feature. He hasn't seen me in years, but I feel like he's never seen a good show. And this has bothered me for 2 decades now because I don't think he's seen me have okay sets,
Yeah.
but I don't think he's ever seen me have a set where like I'm really on fire and the crowd is feeling me. And every time I like talk to him, I'm like, this dude has never seen me do well in 20 years. So I'm projecting and I'm thinking he's thinking, what is this fucking sad sack of shit doing? It's like,
Yeah,
no,
like
I
what are
swear to
you
God, it goes well most of the time. I know you've seen me 10 or 12 times. You just saw 10 or 12 clunkers.
Yeah. Yeah. Not stinkers, clunkers.
Yeah.
So in his mind, he's just like, I mean, Pat's doing his thing.
Yeah, that's cool. He's out there trying. All right. So, what got you from LA to New York? What was the catalyst there with the UCB?
It was as simple as a phone call.
Oh,
I
nice. I like easy.
they
That's good.
it was super easy, maybe even too easy, some would say, but no, they've always wanted to reopen. So it's new ownership. So Amy Poehler and Matt Besser and everybody sold it like kind of secretly in like end of 2020, beginning of 2021. The new UCB is owned by Jimmy Miller, who owns Mosaic Talent Agency.
Oh, yeah.
Also Rich Miller's brother,
Yes.
who owns
Yes.
Helium Comedy Clubs. Yeah.
Dennis Miller's
And
is
Dennis
also part
Miller.
of the family. Is it true that Jimmy
Yeah.
Miller manages Jim Carrey and Will Ferrell?
I'm
Or is
not
their
sure, but
agent?
I'm not sure about Jim Carrey, but I for sure know Will Ferrell. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, and Will Ferrell, he still manages Will Ferrell to this day. I don't know if Jim Carrey has a manager
Maybe
anymore,
I was making
but
that up, but I could have swore I heard that years and years
I
ago.
I wouldn't doubt it. I actually might Google it now, but I don't know, but Will Ferrell for sure, and he's performed at UCB one time when we like reopened.
Yeah, I saw a picture that you posted.
It was so good. He was the nicest. He was the nicest.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I'm not an actor by any way, shape, or form, but like he is a true hero of mine because he is just
Oh yeah.
so like even his SNL audition, the cat, like, oh my God. It's
Yeah.
so and I remember I still laugh at him at like Get Off the Shed now the same way I laughed at it in college. Like it's so funny.
You know what's crazy is that I got to watch. So I was doing audience coordination for Sarah. I don't know if it ever came out. I think it did, but last in 2021 we filmed. Sarah Silverman brought back Stupid Pet Tricks, the David Letterman
Oh yeah.
like segment. So she made a show with TBS. And they filmed the first whole season of Stupid Pet Tricks in LA, and I worked on that show. And Will Ferrell plays like a guest on it. He plays like a park ranger that comes on as a guest, and he's doing his whole like yelling into the like half sentences kind of Will Ferrell distraught thing. And I was like, oh my God, this must all be like, this is all improvised. This is so cool. I'm getting to watch like this happen. And I look at the teleprompter and it's all written. I was like, wait,
Oh
what?
wow.
Like my brain broke for a second. I was like, this isn't. So I don't know if
Oh, that would have blew my mind too.
I mean, it was like the arg, like so it like
Like unmistakably him.
yes, yes. And I was like, did he ask for because he's not looking at the teleprompter. It's not like he needs it, but it's there verbatim what is happening. And I was like, dang, I thought this was all improvised.
Ah, see,
Yeah.
that's news to me and news to you, because peeling back behind the curtain a little bit.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sorry to blow up your spot.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because sometimes people will ask stuff about stand up, and you give them a little peek behind the curtain. That was totally that for me. I had no idea that he'd
Yeah,
be
well,
reading off the prompter like that.
yeah. It was an interesting thing, but I mean, that's also the testament of such a good actor where
Oh
he
my,
makes it look flawless.
so natural, same as a good stand up. All right, so what was this phone call you made?
Oh, so the owners, we having a venue in New York is, I'm learning, very insane, next to nearly impossible, lots of red tape. Um,
I
but
can't even imagine.
we've had two now. We had one, and it was supposed to open in October, or I'm sorry, last October. That they gave it back. I don't know what happened. And then now we acquired a new spot, and I called my boss, who is the CEO, and I was like, "Hey, because there's two I failed to mention. Mike McAfee, who was also the previous CEO of The Onion, is the other
Ah, okay.
um, owner of UCB. So he's my direct boss, and I called him up one day and I was just like, hey, if I wanted a free trip to New York, I was like, hey, if ever you need someone to go check out on the venue, give some opinions, I'm happy to be down. And he kind of stopped and he's like, do you want to just run it? And I was like, are you serious? And he's like, are you serious? I was like, okay. And then that was the conversation.
Wow, for once something worked out easily
Yeah. It was
in this business.
honestly too easily.
So,
But
how has New York City been treating you?
I love it. It's great. So I've been here since October.
Is it your first time living there?
First time living
Okay.
here. Yeah. Yeah. I visited, I had my 18th birthday in New York back in the day, and then came for like the Women's March. I was like long distance dating a guy that lives in New Jersey. So we went to New York one time.
Okay. Okay.
That was like in like 2006. But I haven't really spent much time here. But it's so easy. What I love the most about New York is the fucking subway, dude. Like I know everyone's just like, yeah, but it is the most convenient and the most like I'm more social because I'm like, yeah, I could just the thought of walking down the block to get on a train to get to wherever I need to go is so much less daunting than in Los Angeles, where you're like, oh, well, that's a 40-minute car ride there and an
Yup.
hour car ride back. And like, it's way more catering to like having a social life.
How long did it take you to figure out the subway system, or are you still learning it?
No, no, pretty easy. I figured out this time, but I remember last time I was here was in like 2016 for like the Women's March. My roommate from Portland and I like came, and we went to DC and we spent the day in New York. And I was on a lot of Zoloft for the first time,
That's how
and
a good story starts.
yeah. And I remember I just didn't give a fuck. I was like month two of just like being yonked out on Zoloft. And I remember her and we were trying to go to the history museum and we're in something we've never didn't know how to do the subways. She's never been in New York before. I was like, let's just get on this one. And she's like, I think this is the wrong one. And I was like, well, what does it matter? We'll just get on and it'll take us, we'll see where we end up and then we'll readjust. And she just grabs me by the shoulders and she goes, I love you. I know this is the fucking medicine talking right now, but I hate you in this moment. And then she like grabbed my hand like a child. And we walked and we were just on the wrong side. We just had to get up, go to the other platform.
This is such a New York question to ask you, but what's the craziest thing you've seen on the subway since you've been there?
Um, Nothing super crazy. There this morning I saw something that was like, is this like a Get Out episode? There was oh there was a black woman reading a book and like reading and highlighting something, and then a very old white woman sitting over her shoulder also reading it and then pulling out a notebook and taking notes
Oh
and then like putting her notebook back, and then she would like do it like discreetly, and then she came up and did it again, and I just was observing. I was like, I'm ready to fight in any
Oh,
moment.
I would not be able to take my eyes off that. Just this past fall, just a few months ago, I was flying and I had the window seat and I was doing a crossword puzzle. And then the woman next to me in the middle seat was helping me and I did not ask her to.
Insane.
My jaw hit the floor. She's like, "Oh, that's," and I was like, uh, 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 "I
Did you did you punch her?
no, I let her answer two things, and I put my fucking book away."
Yeah, you're like, we're done. We're not playing this game. I would have
That's
loved it if
no
she would have been
hello
like,
either.
Henry,
Like
no hello, no intro, no where are you
no
flying
intro,
to?
no. Well, she probably knew where I was flying to.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, that was wild. And in my head, I'm like, no way she just did that. There's no way. And like, when you like catch that, or like I could feel her looking down at my tray table, and I just
Yeah.
got so uncomfortable. I put the book away.
Oh, no, screw that. On the flight to Wisconsin, to or back, I don't remember. There was this guy he was probably $4, $4.
Big boy on the plane.
Big boy. I always feel bad for big boys on planes, but I thought he was struggling to get his luggage in the upper thing. No, he was struggling to put his shoes in the upper compartment.
The shoes he was wearing.
The shoes he was wearing, he had taken them off, and I don't know where at what point he had taken them off because he wasn't like he was already standing. So I'm like, did this man shuffle onto the plane without shoes on?
Monster.
Can you do that?
Monster.
Can you do that? Yeah.
Like, do you follow passenger shaming on Instagram?
No, but I will.
Oh, it's been one of my favorite accounts for years and years now. A lot of gross stuff on there, but also a lot of pictures and videos to where you're just like, thank God I wasn't there because I'd probably get kicked off the plane for what I said to that person.
Yeah. Ugh.
Definitely worth checking out.
As I don't think that plane seats should recline. I think
that's a big debate right now. In recent weeks, that has been on. There was a thing, just
some debate thing on CNN.
Well, in the news, yeah, because fights are breaking out.
Yes.
Yeah. My whole thing is, I don't care if they recline. Just look behind you, because I can't count the amount of times I have been leaning down into my bag to get something, and then boom, they hit me. Like, just fucking look behind you.
Or like my fucking ginger ale's there or something, and it slides. Like I immediately want to murder the person, even if I had nothing going on in the tray. But even I want to physically poke their eyes out anytime someone reclines. I think it's completely unnecessary.
It's also like such a jarring maneuver because it's almost like a car accident. It happens so quick and you don't know it's coming.
Yeah. Well, because also it's never like a swift like lean back. It's everyone's trying to like
it's like it jerks back. It's like one abrupt movement.
Yeah. I say get rid of it.
Hey, I'm not going to argue. I never recline mine anyways.
No, never. I don't.
What seat do you prefer on a plane?
Well, I normally say window, but I've been flying with my boyfriend and he'll take the window, and I'm kind of an aisle. I like an aisle now.
Anything but the middle, pretty much anybody.
Yeah, anything but the middle.
Nobody's ever said I like the middle.
No, and I got diagnosed with a sleeping disorder this year, so I sleep real heavy.
Ooh, and which one, if I may ask?
It's called idiopathic hypersomnia.
Ooh,
it's like a level above narcolepsy.
Okay.
So I had a sleep study done, and I always thought I had narcolepsy a little bit, but in college I had a sleep study. They kind of said that, and then I just dealt with it. But then like last 2 years, did another sleep study. Your girl falls asleep dead ass between 1 and 3 minutes of laying her head on a pillow. Just done.
Dude, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, but I never hit REM sleep, so it's never restorative sleep. So, which is like with age is like catching up. But I remember I told a coworker that I was like, "Yeah, I never hit REM sleep," and he goes, "Isn't that what serial killers have in common?"
Let me tell you guys about Magic Mind. Like most comics, like most people, I struggle with being productive, just sitting down and getting the work done when I need to. Luckily, the great folks over at Magic Mind have just the thing to help. Magic Mind is a great little drink that boosts energy and focus. I typically have it either after my morning coffee or in the afternoon when the coffee starts to wear off. These little bottles of Magic Mind are perfect for at home or on the go anytime you need calming energy and a boost. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. There's an ingredient in it called lion's mane mushroom, which reduces anxiety while also stimulating the brain for better energy and less stress. Magic Mind is great. I use it every day, and you can get 1 month free when subscribing for 3 months. Just go to www.magicmind.com/Jan. Do it. That is www.magicmind.com/Jan. Do it. Type in the promo code DOIT20, all caps. DOIT20, all caps. I'm recommending it to you. I use it all the time. Make sure you check out magicmind.com/Jan. Do it 20 and use the promo code DOIT20 for 1 month free when you subscribe for 3 months. We're going to wind down here in a second. There are two things that I like ending the podcast on. But first, before I do that, I want to ask you, what are you working on right now? I know you have your new job at the UCB in New York, and you said that's very time consuming, but is there anything that you're working on right now for you?
No, not at the moment. I mean, truly, I'm just trying to get this theater up and running. I was told February 14th we'll have a first show there. So it's kind of fun. I get to like paint. I get to like set the tone. I'm like picking out paint colors, the curtains, the chair. Like I'm creating a venue. So it's kind of a dream come true, to be honest. So
that's cool.
That's on my focus. Yeah.
That's awesome. I look forward to getting up there and seeing it, which I absolutely will do because
You absolutely will.
I am absolutely due for a New York visit anyways. So
perfect.
So since you've been on the pod, I've developed a habit of asking my guests for a horror story. And since you're a comic and we're comic buddies, I'm going to ask you for a story of a horrible show. I've talked to musicians and other creative people, but hearing a story of a horrible disaster of a show from a stand-up is where my heart is. So, in closing, if I ask you to tell me about a god-awful show that still gives you the creeps when you think about it, does one show stand out?
I'm racking my brain. Like all of them? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are some to choose from. I mean, I've been punched in the face on stage, and I would still say I've had worse sets because that's a whole long story. But in terms of comedy, that wasn't the worst show I've had.
I can't think of. I know that they exist. I wish I would have had a minute to think about this.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you on the spot.
No. I just. I guarantee you there's one that like tomorrow I'm going to be like, fuck, that's the one that I wanted to say. But there is one of the shows that just experiences that just doesn't make sense. It just made me angry, I guess. I guess this was the first thing that popped in my mind when you brought this up. Mm-hmm. But Portland would have some shows where Portland went through a phase where they kept calling some shows safe space rooms, which is a phrase that I don't believe can ever exist unless you are hosting a private party and you know all of the invitees and everything.
In your living room.
In your living room, exactly. And it's for you and the 6 people who you know and love the most. But so there was a really good show in town at a bar, at like a douchebag bar. It was the basement of a douchebag bar. Not a safe space bar by any means, not like a thing. And the show just was such it built because it was a great venue, right? And the host tried so hard to make it a safe space room and would like not book certain people that they thought were too offensive or too abrasive. I actually tried out a rape joke on it, like talked about my experience with rape into a joke form, thinking that, I could do that, and was told to never return. I never got asked back because I told a rape joke on it. And I was like, but it's your
experience or your, yes.
Experience. And also like fuck you. But then, so notoriously, this host and producer of the show would just like do that to people all the time of just like, don't say that joke, don't say this, blah, blah, blah. This is a safe space room. But to this day, it's the only place that has had 3 fights break out and an ambulance been called because of it, like tension between what is and is not safe space material.
You're essentially just making shit worse by putting this people
right. And I was like, okay, well, what's worse, me talking about me making a story very funny that is tragic, or an ambulance down here cleaning up blood on the floor? Like, come on.
Wow.
So, not like the worst, but just like the worst type of like venue, like the worst, you know what I mean, like the worst type of like, ugh.
You said basement of a bar, so I already had half my visual, there.
yeah. I mean, the venue's great, but just like the worst type of like scenario to do comedy. You know what I mean? Where it's just like all the joy was and fun was taken out of it in the name of something that is arbitrary.
Might not even exist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where can everybody find you? I want to send people to your social medias, and I also want to send them to the UCB in New York whenever. You said February 14th. We won't hold you to that date because we all know how opening things go.
Well, I appreciate that. My head's being held to that date. Also, now I'm like, what a weird story to end on. But well, we did it. If you want to hear more about sad shit, no, you can follow me on Instagram, JoAnn.Schinderle. Fun story. I'm a SAG-AFTRA member, and when I signed up to sign my paperwork for SAG, the lady at the front desk was like, "And this is the name you want to keep?" I was like, "Oh, yeah." She's like, because once you register with the union, like you can't change it. Like this is.
Yeah, this is my name. This is.
And I was like, "Yeah, this is my name." So I got roasted by the front desk lady at SAG.
People ask me if house is fake. I'm like, wow, no. Why would I pick house?
What? Yeah.
I was like, no.
Because it sounds like you're trying to big dog.
What are you trying house? Like, no, it's my. I'm the third. It's my name.
Are you really the third?
I am. Yeah.
Do you ever sign your name with the 3 little things?
No.
Oh, that'd be fun.
That's work.
That Pat House 3. It's like a movie.
Oh God, we need to make the first one first. Before we get a trilogy out of it. But JoAnn, thank you so much for being here. It was great to catch up with you. Thank you for being my very first podcast guest and returning for a hopefully much better, informative, conversational, personal episode.
Ugh, I love the hell out of you, Pat House.
Likewise. We are going to cross paths this year, 100% certain of it. I definitely will be checking out the UCB, and also we got to get down here. I'm such a mushmouth still after all these years. Got to get you down here to Philly. Dude, seriously.
Please, cannot wait. I want to explore the East Coast, and let's do it together, my friend.
Yep, let me know anytime. All right, JoAnn Schinderle, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.